Are you looking for a podcast where you can hear from real people regarding their real dental drama? If so, then you've come to the right place. Join hosts Bethany and Dr. Kuba as we dive into the solutions we've created and the mistakes we've made while managing dental drama. Let's get started.
Hey, stranger.
Hello.
Good to be back in the closet with you. It's Texas summer, so it's kind of warm in here.
Yeah, we're heating it up with our hot air that we
Yes. So speaking of hot air and random babblings that I know, that's why you love me, because I just randomly babble and then you find the track I'm trying to go on here. And I know I wanted to talk about this because I took up 2 hours of your time the other day because I was all distraught over, I'll talk about it here coming up. So I don't know that I've got a true, like, what is the point of this podcast other than to say that I can't be the only dentist who's had these thoughts. And I found your, our dialogue and your words of encouragement very encouraging. And I want other dentists to, hopefully get some of that as well. Because I think we are constantly feeling like we are doing the wrong thing or not measuring up in some form or fashion. And I think I hit, a road with that this past week. And, I was just kind of feeling murky all week going, okay, now what? And you talked me off the ledge. And I think that was the point. And I think that's kind of the point of this podcast, hopefully today, is to go, hey, friends out there, colleagues, like, like kind of that, are we enough? Am I enough? Like, and I think I want everybody to have that reassurance in our own way.
Right.
And to not get in our own way or get in our own heads. So it may not be making sense right now. I think once we start dialoguing, we can kind of hopefully end this on a feel good.
Yes. For sure. Well, and I think to your point, and as you begin to share some of the stuff you walked through over these last, the last week or two, I think the dental field has always been a high pressure field for practice owners. Like there's always this push to achieve more, accomplish more, and not that that's a bad thing. I never want to say that any of that's a bad thing, but I think what it's created in all my years of working with dentists is kind of this restlessness. Like we haven't yet arrived. We're still not where we need to be. We've got to push harder. We got to work harder. And I guess from my vantage point, after 15 years of sitting with dentists and hearing them, a lot of times we don't talk enough about contentment and where you're at, and not just, I got to deal with a crappy practice. I would never say that, but once you've ironed out things in your practice and you've got a lot of really good things going for you, is it ever going to be perfect? No, but is it going to be a practice that's achieving the bulk of your goals? And my rule of thumb is, can we stay there? Can we just maintain? Once we get to that point, can we kind of stop gunning for the next thing and push harder and push further? And can we find some contentment in that spot? And I think that's kind of where you found yourself in a position where you were being challenged on that. Like, where are you going? Where do you want to get your team? And blah, blah, blah. And it just caused that doubt to creep back in. And I think that's very common in the dental field.
And I think that's, there's nothing wrong with gunning for more, or if you're a, $500,000 practice to gun to be a $250,000 or a $750,000 practice and then be the $1 million practice. Like there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you want.
Yeah.
And how do you know if that's what you want? Is it because your CPA told you needed to do that? Is it your spouse telling you need to do that? Or is it you? Like, are you yourself going, I know we can do this. I'm not practicing efficiently right now, and I'd love to see that happen. So I think it all goes back to the why, and, why are you doing what you're doing? And certainly that can change at year 5 in your practice ownership, in year 7, in year 10.
And it will change. It should change, quite honestly, because life changes. You're at year 5, you may be experiencing different life circumstances than you're experiencing at year 10. And so the practice, especially when you're the owner of the practice, it should kind of pivot to be able to enable you to be whatever you need to be in your life as well. So it actually should look different at various stages, in my opinion.
And I think we get stuck in that, oh, I should be. Okay, I've got a $500,000 practice. I need to be a $1 million practice. I need to do this. And for no reason. Like it's outside voices saying that. And so I think that for me is my challenge to everybody, kind of going, if you are feeling a lot of pressure, so, yeah, I mean, there is a lot of pressure in the fact that, yeah, if you owe $1 million, I guess you do have to gun for that and do all that. But if you've come on the other side of that, do we need to have that second office? Do we need to have that, do we need to have 3 or 4 so we can then turn around and sell to private? Because that's what I'm supposed to do. And that's the coveted land where we have arrived. And it's really easy to get caught up in all the chatter, and which is what I was finding myself getting caught up in, all this chatter this past week, and it just really kind of brought me down. And luckily I have you to talk through that with and get me settled back. But I want this to be, hopefully a piece of positivity for anybody who may be going through this. And just kind of remember to listen to your own voice and seek appropriate counsel, I guess. So where this kind of started for me was I went last week to Scheduling Institute Practice Growth Summit, and it was a phenomenal, weekend. But even that, I think in my mind, I was like, why did I go to that? Just because, I think for me, why I went was I liked the speaker lineup. Was, they for their growth summits, they always bring in, like last year was, not Dr. Oz, the other one, Stork or whatever his name is, Stork, whatever, Travis, somebody, and Deion Sanders, and like whatever, like these like motivational people. And so this year I was like, do I need all that motivation? Like but it's still kind of cool. Like, okay, I haven't been to one of these in a while because I didn't go last year. I sent 2 of my teammates and they really enjoyed it. And so my thought was, what am I hoping to gain out of this? Well, the tickets weren't that expensive. I bought my airfare on miles. Like, so yeah, I was going to miss summer days of production, but my goal was kind of, I have a team member that I thought, she's been talking about wanting to be a leader in the practice, and me currently going, I don't see that. Like, I don't, she is she's almost kind of the one swimming against the grain, or is almost stirring the pot, not in a malicious way. I don't think she even realizes that that's what she's doing. And my thought was, I don't think she's ever properly been trained to think about some of these things.
Right.
In how do you be a better leader? Because in her mind, all she's seen is the leaders that she can pick on in the practice. But my point has always been, but you don't know why they're picking on you for those things. I think you think they're just being a mean person. But they're coming at it from a strategic standpoint going, we want to maximize efficiency so that we can bonus the team, so that we can help our patients. And so I think the people in the practice that get that have had the opportunities to go listen to some of these seminars, and whether it's Scheduling Institute, Practice Growth Institute is what they're calling themselves now, or the Dallas County Dental Society, or the Southwestern Dental Conference, like things like that they've had the ability to really sit on these, they've had exposure. And then we come back in the practice and we sit and we talk about, like, what do we want as a group, or some of the culture talks we did earlier this year. And this particular teammate had a lot of good things to say earlier this year on some of those topics. I was like, okay, I think she can learn from this. And I think the reason she's so counterproductive, according to, like, she just views the leadership team as bullies.
Yeah.
But I think it's because she's not had a chance to see the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Let me take her and expose her. So my whole point was not even for me to grow the practice. It was for me to grow a leader in the office. Now, that could be a colossal epic failure, because she could come back and not have gotten one thing out of it, or have been like, never mind, I don't want to be a leader, or whatever, right?
Yeah, it's a risk.
It's a risk. But to me, it was a worthwhile risk, because she has mentioned how she wants to be in the practice long term.
Right.
And she has expressed wanting to be a leader, which to me then, okay, then you're willing to push yourself.
Right.
And you're willing to challenge yourself. And to me, it was a worthwhile investment to figure those things out, because what would happen if not? then she would have been, say in the fall, been like, well, I want to be a leader. We're all like, you're the one constantly challenging the leadership.
Right.
Now we're going to embrace you on our team to just continue to go against the grain. And then if we're not elevating you as a leader, you're going to leave. And we don't want you to leave. You're a really great employee in a lot of ways. So to me, it was kind of that moment of, have I invested in you to at least get the answer? Mm-hmm. And now you have the exposure, and now the ball's in your court. What are you going to do with it? And if by the end of this year you decide that you're going to continue to go against the grain and continue to challenge the leadership in ways that don't make sense for the practice, then you'll weed yourself out of the practice. But that way it's not on me that I didn't invest in you.
Right.
Anyway, so all of that to say, it was a good conference. Hot on the heels of that, I ended up having a breakfast with a gentleman that I met through Scheduling Institute. He's actually trained in our office over the years. I've done a one-on-one coaching day with him. He's no longer at Scheduling Institute, but now he's trying to start his own consulting, whatever. So I think he wanted to have breakfast with me to woo me to be a client of his eventually. And for me, I'm like, he always did challenge me with questions he would ask me. And so, you know what? What's the harm? He's been asking for breakfast for a while. Fine, I'll go to breakfast. Like, what's the worst? And the worst was, so there we are sitting so hot on the heels of this like practice growth summit where I was kind of going like, when we came back, team members were like, okay, what'd you learn? What are we doing? And in my mind, I'm like, we're not doing anything. And then, so I had to really stop and think, why did I go to that? Because you're right, I wasn't gunning to grow. But then the seed in my mind was, oh, shoot, did I miss the point? Like, was I supposed to go to be gunning to grow? Well, that's not why I went. I went to take this. I went to grow an employee, not grow my practice.
Right.
But indirectly grow my practice. Like if I've got another leader on the team and somebody who's going to be there long term and we're all like-minded to help maintain the practice. Yeah, it does benefit the practice. But my goal was not to say, hey, we're now making, $250,000. Let's hit the $400,000 mark. Like that's not why I went to begin with. But now the team's thinking that's why I went. So now they're asking like, what'd you learn? What are we doing? And I'm like, we're not doing anything. Like, shoot, did I mess this up? Like that was my thought, was like, damn it. Like, let me go back through the notes and go, wait, what are we doing for the practice?
Yeah.
As far as the employee, we had a really great talk. In my mind right now, I feel like it was absolutely worth it. I think she was absolutely worth the investment. Time will tell where she's going to end up, but I think
the potential's there.
The potential's absolutely there. I was very pleased with that part of taking the time out of the practice to go do that with her. Anyway, so now I'm having breakfast with this guy, and he knew I had just gone to this growth summit, which he knows all about the growth summit because he used to lead, when he worked for them. So then now there he is asking me all these questions about growth and are you thrilled with your practice? And what was the other one? Are you thrilled?
All I remember is the Maldives.
Yeah. So he said something about getting your team, if you're hiring the right people to align yourself to take you where your practice wants to go. So if you are unclear about your own goals, then how can you get a team to rally in behind you? And I'm like, all of that makes sense. And all of that, I feel like that's what I've been doing the last 10 years of the practice, is trying to get a team to see the vision and to help us get there. And I think I just, I got caught up in his, because now he was telling me about how, when he left Scheduling Institute and he went to go do blah, blah, and then he left there and now he's trying to start this consulting thing, and how he's aligning himself with these like-minded people and they're going to help him grow. And why am I not doing the same in my practice? And I think I just kind of got all the lines blurred because I left there going, well, shoot. Like, I just felt really negative. Like because I was challenging him with, I'm like, okay, but you could, like, he was about to hire his first employee. And he's like, I'm like, I want to go to the Maldives. Do you want to go to the Maldives? It's going to be a really tough journey, but that's where we're going. And we want the best and we want all of that. So I've hired this person that's that way. And I was like, okay, but what happens when you invest all this time in her and then in a year she's ready to leave? Mm-hmm. And he just looked at me like I was the biggest fool on the planet. And that I was just this shower of negativity. And I was like, but I think that's realistic, because if you're hiring the best of the best always want the best. Mm-hmm. And so she might spend a year with you and then realize there's better somewhere else.
Yeah.
And if you're going to sit and feel like there's no better, then you're fooling yourself, friend. Mm. And he's looking at me like, no, you're the fool for not believing you're the best. Anyway, we just had this like really circular conversation then, because I was like, well, if she's the best, you're not going to be able to pay her the best.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way, because you are a new business. There's only so much you're going to be able to afford her, and she's going to realize that at some point. And how long is she going to be willing to take a pay cut? You might find the unicorn that's fine and all about the mission and doesn't care about the paycheck. There are people out there that are like that. They're very difficult to find.
Right.
So, and then I started asking him too, because I think he's wanting to coach dentists and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, but what are you going to do when we literally have a pool of employees that they are good at chairside assisting, or they are good at figuring out insurance benefits, but at some point, the employer down the road who is just sold to corporate is not going to give them 4 weeks of vacation that I cannot do.
Right.
So it's going to be a constant. So I guess in my mind, I was just trying to alert him to go, you can rah all you want to on paper, but the reality becomes, are you going to be ready to help your dentists daily with their daily challenges? Yeah. Because we all know we want to go to the Maldives, but what are you going to do when your boatmate's leg got bit by a shark? Like, we're going to have to pivot for a moment. Or then you got like a hole in your sail. Like, you're going to have to stop at the random island and be in a crappy place for a while you figure out how you fix that sail. Yeah. And so I think he just viewed me as extremely negative. And I'm like, but that's the reality of what we're doing daily.
Yeah.
So are you going to be ready to coach? Are you going to have answers for your, and his answer kept kind of going, well, it's you, Kuba, because you don't believe that you can find employees that want to go to the Maldives. And I'm like, but I've lived it. Yeah. I'm living it right now. Like, yes, they say they want to go to the Maldives, but when their leg gets hacked off, they don't want to go to the Maldives anymore. They can't. You know what I mean? And so, like, I think I just was in this moment of going, so anyway, we left. We both just kind of left just looking at each other and both going, okay. And so I'm sitting there in the car and I'm like, you know what? What if he's right? What if I haven't, like, do I know where I'm going? What was my goal? Like, Bethany's always on me to figure out my goal. And I'm just like, I'm back in that same conundrum all over again. I don't know. And then am I this negative Nelly that doesn't believe in my team and doesn't believe in people anymore and doesn't believe in like, so that's when I called you out of like total despair going, okay, like you need to help fix me because I am
obviously broken.
I am obviously somewhere in the Bermuda Triangle and not anywhere near the Maldives. Help me. What am I doing? Where am I?
Am I even on a boat?
I don't even know. I don't know. I'm in the ocean. I'm in space. I don't know where I am. Like, fix me, please. So I'll stop talking now and I'll throw it to you because you said a lot of good things to me. Because I was ready for you to go, no shit. Like, that's what I've been telling you. You got to have a goal. Like, now do you know why I'm having you do all that stuff you don't like to do, ma'am? Like, good. Somebody else told you to. You are a colossal failure. Like, do your goals. And like, I was just like, okay, Bethany, I'm ready. Like, hit me with what I need to do to fix myself. Like, because clearly I am not okay. And you didn't. You actually. Yes.
I did not.
Yes.
And, it's so funny. I mean, even just listening to you rehash it again, I'm sitting here, like, hopefully the listeners can't hear me, just literally holding my laughter in because it's not funny. But at the same time, I told you this over the phone, the fact that you could go into a meeting like that and walk out completely crushed and I am so broken. My practice is broken. I'm a bad leader. I don't know where I'm going. It just cracks me up because it is so not true. Like, that is what struck me just right away is it is not true in any vein. But it also is such a testament to sometimes, and I don't know why it's so pervasive in the dental field, it just is what happens. Like, we've got you that, and I told you this over the phone, all the, no, you can't say, is the Maldives your final destination? Is that what you're aiming for? I don't think you have this long-term plan. You don't have your exit strategy plan. You don't have any of that. That's fine. I knew years ago that was hard for you to articulate that. But I went through and I was like, we clearly know what you want in the practice and what you don't want. And I rattled all of those off to you. I'm like, you want to have an environment where ladies can have careers, where it can actually be a job that not does more than just pays for the bills, but it's actually personally developing them. You've done that. You continue to do that. You want to practice where you aren't the only doctor. In an ideal scenario, you love to have a counterpart that makes your life more enjoyable. It allows you to be away from the practice more, to be there for kid stuff, parent stuff that's going on right now. You got that right now. You want a practice that's actually growing inside. You don't have an idea of what you want the growth to be, but is it stable enough to pay the bills and keep everybody fed and happy and lights on? Yes, you're doing that, and it's actually financially growing. You don't care about that quite as much. I care about that. But it's doing that. You want a certain level of patient experience that you're constantly working on. You want to have a certain level of communication with parents. And you're constantly working with a team on training with communication and all of that. You're doing that. You want a highly educated team. You don't want just, people that are in there that know A and B. You want them to know A, B, C, D, E, F, G. As far as you can push them from an education standpoint, you invest in that. And so when we just sat there and unpacked it, I'm like, you are successful because you are doing, your practice is giving you exactly what you want right now. And no, you can't tell me or whoever where you want it to be in 5 years from now, but right now, today, it is supplying for you exactly what you want it to supply for you.
And I've had my leg bitten off, and I have hit all these other spots. Like we've arrived at the Maldives.
Yeah.
And what am I now supposed to do? Go full circle around and go back to Hawaii? Like, is that, and if that's what my goal was, that's fine. But why is it not okay to just hang in the Maldives for a while?
Yes.
Because I did have to go through a lot to get there.
Yeah.
And I think that's what was so simple, but really confounding me after these conversations, because I feel like I was meant to go, well, no, you've arrived at the Maldives, but now you need to XYZ. And I'm like, but I don't know that I want to go to Hawaii. Like, I thought I was going to the Maldives. And so you had to point that out to me.
Yeah.
And not that that means that I don't want to go to Hawaii someday, but right now I don't. Like, I've worked very hard to get to the Maldives to be able to step out of the practice and be there for my aging parents and do all of these things. And it's working for now. And until those life goals change for me, they may change when my kids are out of college. They may change. Yeah. But right now, this is where it's not like I'm shortchanging myself. I've worked really hard to get to here, to where I could step away for days, where I could. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so I think I needed you to point all of that out to me, because I just felt very pressured and like that I was failing. Somehow
failing. And I do think, there's a beauty to these conferences that we go to. They should be inspirational and, exciting in some ways, but I think we do have to protect ourselves from that natural negative that can start to happen, which is, I'm not enough. My practice isn't enough. You mentioned that the Scheduling Institute renamed to the Practice Growth Institute, which again, I love that. I love growth. I love growth. Believe me, when I step into a practice that's like, hey, we're here and we need to get to here for all these various reasons, I'm like, let's do it. There's a million levers we can pull. Let's go do it. I love practice growth. But what I love more than that is finding that balance between what does life demand of me right now as a human, from families, from my friends, like what does my life need of me right now? And then how can the practice provide for those needs? Because to me, that's how they work together. And a lot of times we'll separate that and we'll go, grow your practice as big as you can get it, as much money as you can make out of it, go for it. And that isn't always what the life needs. And so I think that's where we get imbalanced, is when we separate those two and we look at them as mutually exclusive, and you're only successful in your practice if you're hitting all these like growth mile markers. And one of the questions I asked you when you were, doubting yourself, because I think part of that conversation was, why aren't you trying to get to the Maldives? And the question I asked you was, but you're there. You're already there. And why can't we consider the fact that you could already be at your destination? Why do we have to then get to the destination and assume that you're not there, or assume that there's somewhere else that you need to go? Why can't we stay there and enjoy the balance of what you've been able to create? And that's, like you said, that's been years of work to get to that point. And is that going to be what your life requires of you in 5 years? Maybe, maybe not. But the practice should be able to kind of go with life. And so I think we've got to be really guarded in these conversations that we have, in books that we read, in conferences that we go to. We've got to always balance it out with the why. And if what a seminar or a book is trying to challenge you in is not actually connected to your why, or what your life is requiring out of you, then you've got to be willing to go, that's not for me. And I realize that every other practice, it's for them, and that's what makes them successful. But for me, that isn't what I need. And I think that takes a lot of mental gymnastics to do that.
And I think that alone is just such a beautiful thing to say and to be reminded of, because a couple of things come to mind. So first, like the seminar actually was fantastic because they pulled all these different speakers in, and there was enough like business growth stuff, but really like they would separate the doctors out to go do more of that stuff. One day I went with the doctors. The other day I didn't want to miss the speakers because they were phenomenal. So for the staff, like the speakers were more about how do you elevate yourself. If your personal life is a hot mess, your professional life is going to be a hot mess. Mm-hmm. So really anything for any employee anywhere, or any worker, mm-hmm. like how do you support yourself professionally? You have to be personally in the right mind space.
Right.
So that works for anybody across the board. So I really liked that. So I think the Growth Summit was phenomenal in that I think a lot of practices that do want to grow were able to get those elements. I didn't feel sales pitched at all. I didn't feel the pressure for the growth because I think I stayed with the more personal, like how do I as a person become a better person, right. Manage my stress better, manage my health better. Like there were things like that, or like because some of the speakers, one was Mel Robbins, and she was talking about how do you change your habits and how do you so it had nothing to do with dentistry. It was applicable across the board. Chick-fil-A, there were two speakers from Chick-fil-A, and one was about how do you recruit talent. Mm-hmm. And are you looking for, what are you looking for? Just any employee to plug and play? Or are you looking for strategically the right person to hire in your practice? Which in dentistry, that's hard to do. That was hard to do after the pandemic. Things have changed now. Maybe now we can get back to finding the right person rather than just a body breathing in the practice. Anyway, so I think the practice seminar was great. And so, yeah, if you can find conferences that meet those needs, I think you've kind of just said, yeah, if your practice mantra is grow, 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 but hopefully that grow, grow, grow is connected to things that you want. Am I growing it? Why? Because I've got to pay my debt back? Okay, then yeah, you need to keep growing. I've done that. Now why am I growing? Mm-hmm. Is it to make a bigger mark on my community and see more patients? Usually the answer is so I can retire, get the hell out of there, sell the practice, and go live the life I want to live. Or in my case, I can't be there 5 days a week right now. Mm-hmm. I've got kids and I've got aging parents. I've got doctor appointments all the time. And so for me, I've hit that where I'm kind of on autopilot now, where I could go in, see patients on 3 days, get out of there and go do things that I need to do in my life. But isn't that the point of a job? Like if I was the mailman, what is the point of my job? It's not so that I can advance myself in the mail world. You know what I mean? It's so that I can have a paycheck so I can live my life and hit my life goals, demands, desires.
Yeah.
And so it is weird how as dentists we get that separated.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is my life. And most of us started a practice because we were unhappy with the experiences we had in another practice. And that wasn't the case for me. I loved the other practice, but it wasn't going to make sense with my family life. And I knew that early on. But I think when you start the practice, then you're hoping you get more fulfillment out of your professional interactions. Most people that start a practice were an associate somewhere, and then they weren't getting to do what they wanted to do as far as procedures went, or they were getting overworked or felt bullied, whatever it might be. And you started your own to be able to professionally, I want to do more veneers. I want to do more implants. I don't want to sedate kids anymore. I just want to do my OR days, whatever. Like, you wanted to have your way professionally. And for some reason, that has turned into, I've got to grow this monster, but for what outcome?
It's disconnected from life.
Yes. And the whole point was so that you weren't feeling overworked. But man, owning that practice is like more work than you've ever done in your entire life, and you can't turn off ever.
Yeah.
And we thought that wouldn't be a big deal when we were working for ourselves and all the money was going to us. And then to quickly find that that's not really the case, and you are more of a servant now than you've ever been in your entire life. Yeah. Somehow we missed that. But then it's like, how do I get back on track then? How do I not make this practice eat every living cell and breath out of my body?
Yeah.
And then, unfortunately, what ends up happening now is then we go clear the other direction. We're selling our practices.
Right.
Because I can think of, you know which colleague I'm talking about, and I never would have envisioned him selling. I never saw that coming because he was very much like, that was his problem, is he wouldn't give up control in anything. I tried to get you to go help him. He wouldn't listen to a damn thing you said because he knew better and he was smarter. And he wouldn't give up any control.
Yeah.
So to go from that to selling half your practice.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, you missed all the steps in between. It's so how did like selling fool you enough to think that you were still going to have control?
Yeah.
Like the whole thing is just this mindset, but he was so burnt out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, you missed all the in between. And I don't know if it was just this grow to keep up with the Joneses, and then suddenly your personal life was just a colossal mess, and you were probably needing to be medicated because your
stress levels
so
so
stressed.
high.
Yeah. And but it's all of what we're talking about today. We are made to feel like we're not enough.
It's this pressure of, again, to go back to the analogy of the Maldives, like this rah, if you just believe it enough, and if you just encourage your team enough, and if you just, positivity, you're going to get there. Work, keep paddling. But the reality is that we are hit with, you mentioned, like the shark attack, and the sail has holes in it.
A hurricane got in your way.
A hurricane comes through. Like, we are constantly, and we always have been, but I feel like the problems definitely compounded after pandemic and continue to compound. I mean, they're different. We're constantly being hit with different things, but it's very hard to just envision with all that hurricane coming through, the sails are tattered, we've got a team member bleeding out, to just be like, if you can envision like that practice owner that's at the steer of the ship and going, but we got this, guys, let's keep going. Like, that is not reality. Reality is sometimes we do have to pause. We do have to mend the ship. We do have to tend to the bleeding team member. And that doesn't mean that progress isn't happening. And I think that's where we get confused, because it's like, well, shoot, all these problems have hit. And now, look, the Maldives are getting further and further and further away. And I know it can feel like that. But to me, the reality is problems are going to happen. They're just going to happen. And we have to be willing to go, can I just sit here for a minute and tend to my ship, and it's okay. Like, I'm not losing ground. We're going to put an anchor right here. We're going to be here for a little bit, and that's okay. Let's deal with some of these issues. There's still growth happening in the process. As a leader, we're growing.
Repairing. We're not sinking.
Right.
We've paused.
Yes. And pauses are going to happen. And that is the reality.
And pause doesn't mean failure. And I think that's where that's where you helped me kind of go, wait a minute. Why am I being talked into this? I don't want to change what I'm doing. Like if I had to go back now and what we discovered through the practice summits, calculations they were having us do, like what would it take to produce more? Well, I'm like, the easy answer for us is to be open more days because we've got, but then I was like, why is that a bad thing?
Yeah.
Do I want to work more days?
Right.
Can I afford to do that without stressing myself out in my personal life? Probably not. Why is it not okay to pause for right now?
Yes.
Like, I'm at the Maldives. Pause. Now, I may want to go to Hawaii. When my kids are out, my parents don't need me as much anymore. Maybe then I can keep sailing should I choose to. But I may stay here forever. And it's okay.
And
I think
that's
that
okay.
other person that often puts pressure on us is our accounting team.
Yeah.
And so, because I think they're, again, their job is to make sure that we're in the plus and we're growing. And I think they mean to help us to go, oh, well, this is how this is going to help you in your retirement and in your personal life. But are you killing me before I get there? Like, am I going to make it to retirement or am I dead because you told me to keep going even though there was a hurricane? Go ahead, just go right through the eye of the hurricane. There's a pack of sharks on the other side. Go, 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 steer. It like doesn't make sense at some point.
Yeah.
So
yeah, there's got, and again, that you're exactly right. Their goal is I got to get you to the end where you can, leave this practice and you have enough to retire on. And I love that. That's still a focus. That's a perspective that we need, but we've also got to face reality. And reality is there's going to be times that we have to pause. There's going to be times that we're just maintaining. We're doing nothing but maintaining because that is what our life requires of us in the moment. And my big message is there is nothing wrong with that. As a matter of fact, I think more often than not, the fact that we're usually in the dental field, the message is gun for more, push, even if it's based off of really good things. You need to gun for more so that you can pay yourself more so that your wife can stay home because that's her goal. That's a good thing. That's a great, great goal. But at the same time, that can't be independent of reality. And reality may not allow that to be the goal at that time. So we may have to readjust in that moment for a period of time. And we've got to be able to find contentment in that. That's the word I kept using with you on the phone is, why can't we be content with where things are? And that does not mean lazy. We're still working that boat. We're still running the sails. We're still paddling. We're still working, but we're not discontent in that.
And I like the word content because the actual verbiage that this gentleman said to me was, are you thrilled with your practice right now?
Yeah.
And I was like, huh? But I'm like, then I had to stop and think about it. I was like, does anything thrill me? Is that my personality that I'm so thrilled with this today? Taylor dropped a new album. I'm thrilled. Like, that's just not me to be thrilled about things. Yeah. But I saw his point, and I think that to me was like, initially I was like, no, I'm not thrilled. Well, shit, I'm broken. But then, like, going back and saying, okay, that's not my personality, first of all. But second of all, I guess I am thrilled because I can go into my practice 3 or less days a week and still maintain the income that I need to live the life that I want. You know what? Yes, I am thrilled.
Yeah.
And that thrilled for me is different than thrilled for you, perhaps.
Yeah.
But
thrilled is a powerful word. And I'm glad you brought that up because that to me is also a pressure. That we're doing something wrong if we don't walk out of our practice every day going, wow, I am pumped up. That was an amazing day. That's a pressure that is not reality. Are there going to be days that we walk out and we're like, I feel really good about that. Like that was a good day. We did a lot of good things. Sure, there's going to be plenty of those days. But there's going to be equally, if not more, days that we walk out feeling like we've been beaten by the wind, by the waves, by the staff member that got her leg chewed off. Like there's plenty of struggle. And just because we struggle doesn't mean that we're unsuccessful. To me, struggle is a part of success, and it doesn't mean it's a bad part. It just means there's going to be days that we walk out satisfied, content, maybe even days that we walk out thrilled. But in my 15 years of working with practice owners, those are rare days, and that does not mean that it's a bad thing. That means that we are successful because we're content and satisfied with what we have. And so I don't think that needs to be a pressure, that if we're not like walking into the day bebopping like this is going to be amazing. I love this day. I love my staff. I love my patients. We might have days like that, but I do think those are few and far between, and that is the norm, and that is okay.
So I'm not negative Nelly. I'm still reality Rena.
You're still reality
Okay.
Rena. Yes.
Whew.
You're not broken.
So to my friends and colleagues out there, y'all, we've got this. Like, we don't need to be pressured or bullied or doubting ourselves, because we do far too much of that. And I hope y'all take away that we are enough and we are doing our best, and that is okay.
Thanks for joining the conversation today. We hope that you are comforted in knowing that you are not alone, but we also hope that you're walking away with some really great tips and tricks to try in your practice. We value your feedback, so please take a few moments to rate and review the podcast. Finally, we want to make sure that we're covering the topics that matter to you. So track us down on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and let us know what topics you want us to cover. As always, please know that we are rooting for you today as you manage your dental drama.